What if every bite you took was an act of self-love? Well, it can be when we bring awareness to what we put in our body and consciously choose the foods that will nourish not only our body, but our mind. Today on I Love Me, the podcast, we'll explore the best foods for long-term mental and physical health and reveal the top 3 food villains you want to avoid. It's my intention that after listening to this episode, you'll know how to transform your humble plate into a celebration of self-love.
Love, 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 I love me.
Simple, inspiring lessons in self-love. Hi, it's Tamra here with another delicious episode on I Love Me, the podcast. And today I want to talk about the very essence of what we eat. Because what we put in our body plays a huge role in the quality of our physical health and our mental health. So while today is not designed to give you the ins and outs of holistic nutrition, I'd need a whole season to do that, I'd like to offer some guidance that will allow you to gently move towards a diet that is more loving of your physical health and more loving of your mental health. Because I can tell you that what I ate when I was in the midst of suicidal depression had a huge impact on how I felt emotionally, and changing my diet played a big part in helping me recover from that mental illness. Why? Certain foods create chemical reactions in the body that impact how we feel. Yes, dietary changes bring about changes in our brain structure, chemistry, and physiology, which leads to changes in behavior. That's why one of the best ways to support our mental health is to eat well. Not just because it supports our body in functioning well, but because it affects how we feel right now, how we feel emotionally. This is why when I work with someone with depression, we do look at diet, and then we use food to regulate that person's mood. Of course, eating well doesn't deal with the underlying life issues or thought patterns that are at the root cause of the depression. We need to look at that as well, as I discussed in episode 2, Programmed for Love, and that is a big part of how I help someone overcome depression. But food plays a supporting role. So whether you have a mental health issue or suffer from anxiety or simply have low moods or energy from time to time, you can use food to support you in coming back into balance. As the famous saying goes, we are what we eat. Quite literally, what we put in our body becomes our body. Put in the simplest terms, the food goes into our body takes the best bits, turns them into blood, then that moves around the body to nourish our organs. If there's not much good stuff going in, then our body will be poorly nourished and won't function as well. Early warning signs such as fatigue and low energy can then turn into bigger, more serious health issues later on. We need our body functioning well, as it gives us the means to live a healthy, happy life. Our body is our home. We want to treat our body as the very temple that it is by making the very conscious decision to put things in it that will look after it and ensure it serves us well into our wiser years. Just like if we put low-quality fuel into our car, it won't run as well and won't have as long a lifespan as it could if we put quality fuel into it. It's the same with our body. We want to put good quality fuel into our body so that we can run well and run longer. Food in this way is our medicine. We all know this intuitively. If we eat poorly, we feel poorly. If we eat a vegetable-filled home-cooked meal with quality pesticide-free ingredients, we feel well, nourished. The simple truth is we will feel as well as we have eaten. When we eat well, we have more energy, our mind is clearer, and we're nicer to be around. When we make poor choices around our intake of food, we can feel bloated, unfocused, and tired, cranky, and this isn't good for our mental health or our physical health. So, what are self-loving choices when it comes to what we eat? Well, we want to eat a lot of vegetables, especially greens. We all heard this growing up, and it's as true now as it was then. And we want those veggies to be organic or pesticide-free. Long story short, most of what we buy in supermarkets these days has been sprayed with all kinds of toxins that harm the body. Toxins that can have long-term effects on our mental and physical health. So we want to avoid this where possible and buy organic or pesticide-free. There are organic options at supermarkets, but you'll find fresher local produce at places like farmers markets. I love going to farmers markets because you can actually get to know the people who grow your food. You can learn about how it's grown, and this helps us develop a closer connection to the very food that we put in our precious body. Any meat you eat, aim for it to be organic or pesticide-free as well. Seeds and nuts, when eaten in moderation, they give us so many healthy fats and nutrients. When it comes to grains, we want them to be as close to nature as possible. We want to choose ones that have been processed the least. Brown rice over white, wholemeal flour over white, oats, barley, millet, rye. There are so many healthy options available that are easier on our digestion. Whenever you're choosing what to put in your body, you want to choose foods that are toxin-free, so you know you're putting clean food in your body. And you want to eat foods that are as close to nature as possible and make them your main source of nutrition. Because anything that has been highly processed will be harder for the body to digest. And we don't want to make our body work harder than it has to, otherwise we compromise other functions of the body. When it comes to what we drink, we want filtered water to be our main beverage of choice. That and herbal teas or broths, they're brilliant too, as they're packed with lots of nutrients our body can use. So, in a nutshell, we want to be eating organic or pesticide-free food with a focus on eating as close to nature as possible. Lots of vegetables, a little organic meat if you're not vegan or vegetarian, nuts and seeds in moderation, and a focus on whole grains. As a simple rule of thumb when shopping for your food, ask yourself these questions. Is this grown in nature? Could I go and pick this myself? Or is it processed? And how processed is it? When you start to think about these questions, you start to get a better idea on what's going to be a more loving option when it comes to nourishment. Okay. So what about the big no-nos? The 3 villains that will steal away our health, for me, they are refined sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. If there are 3 things most people have on a regular basis that are highly likely to cause mental health issues, it's these 3. So let's look at each one individually, starting with refined sugar. It's probably the hardest to avoid because manufacturers love to sneak sugar into practically everything. But with a little know-how, it can be done. I don't eat refined sugar, and now it's become a lifestyle choice that doesn't get it all in the way of my sweet tooth. In its simplest form, sugar is the juice from a sugarcane plant. ingested in its raw, simplest form, it's not that bad in moderation. The problem is the refining process strips away all the enzymes, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. So when we eat refined sugar, there is no nutritional value. If we look at the true purpose of eating, it's to give the body nutrition. That's why we eat. The refining process of sugar turns it into strange white crystals that are an alien chemical to the human body. Put simply, refined sugar is too processed for our body to handle, especially in the quantities that most people today are eating it. If you're not cooking all your food from scratch, it's really easy to consume a lot of refined sugar without even knowing it, because refined sugar hides out in a ridiculous amount of foods. Just look on the labels of your items when you're shopping next, and you might just be surprised. That's why I have certain cafes I know cook without refined sugar, and I bake a lot of my own foods at home, so I know there are no hidden nasties. And I'll share some of my recipes with you soon, so keep listening till the end so I can give you the details on where to find them. Not only does refined sugar have no nutritional value, it actually leaches out important minerals from our body, minerals that are essential to the well-being of our nerves. It's been linked to mental disorders and an imbalance of neurotransmitters in the brain, not to mention hypoglycemia, dental cavities, and enlargement of the lower kidneys. I could go on and on. The point is, refined sugar does us no favors. So why do we love it so much? Because it's sweet. And it gives us a hit, an instant rush of energy. But that energy hit doesn't last long, and once it wears off, generally around half an hour to an hour later, our mood and energy dip. In this way, sugar cannot sustain us for any length of time. That's why if you feel the need for a sweet pick-me-up, you're far better reaching for a piece of fruit, as the fiber in the fruit slows down the absorption of the sugar. Fruit is close to nature. It comes from nature. It hasn't been processed, making it much easier for the body to digest, giving you a more consistent release of energy. I use fruit in many of my recipes to add the sweetness that makes cooking taste so delicious. So fruit is a brilliant alternative. Be super careful not to get caught replacing refined sugars with artificial sugars. These cause even more harm to the body, with many being linked to cancer. You're much better turning to natural sugars such as fruits. Even honey and maple syrup in moderation are far better alternatives. I'll pop a link in the show notes to an article I wrote for Women's Health and Fitness magazine a while back, because that goes into detail on sugar and outlines some healthy substitutes. Okay, moving on to our next food villain, caffeine. Now, I won't spend long on this one, as I did a whole podcast episode on why I don't drink coffee anymore a few weeks back. Just check out episode 34. But in short, caffeine puts the body into a state of anxiety as it overstimulates the nervous system. This in turn can not only increase your chance of experiencing anxiety and panic attacks, it increases heart rate and blood pressure, which can be risky for people with cardiovascular conditions. It prevents the deep, restful sleep necessary for optimal health and well-being, meaning that the big cleaning job our body does when we sleep, it isn't as efficient. Because caffeine's so acidic, it can lead to digestive problems, peptic ulcers, diarrhea, and constipation. Not only that, it's been linked to reduced calcium absorption, which over time can affect bone health and increase the risk of osteoporosis. Whether it's regular or decaf, coffee is not a self-loving beverage. So, If you're keen to ease off coffee, listen to episode 34. I'll pop a link into the show notes as it guides you on the how to ease off coffee without the withdrawal symptoms and in a way that you don't feel you're depriving yourself. What I will say now is black tea is a better alternative than coffee because it's absorbed into the body differently. But what's even better is herbal teas. And you do want to replace your coffee with something because when you're a regular coffee drinker, you're not just giving up caffeine, you're giving up a habit. So it's easier to continue the habit, but with a healthier option. Finally, let's look at the final food villain, alcohol. We all know that alcohol is a depressant. It numbs and suppresses emotion, which, when you're experiencing a lot of stress, can feel good in the moment, but all it does is mask the internal emotional pain you're experiencing. It doesn't actually get rid of it. So in that respect, drinking alcohol is like popping on a Band-Aid so you can forget your troubles for a few hours. Problem is, alcohol can mess up our serotonin levels, the happy chemical that helps us feel good. When this happens, we're more prone to experiencing low moods on a more regular basis. Not only that, alcohol can be potentially toxic to the vital functions of the liver, heart, kidneys, and lungs, organs we rely on for our survival. Alcohol asks the liver to devote almost 80% of its functioning to handling the chemical breakdown and eliminating its toxic excess. When the liver has to focus on breaking down and getting rid of alcohol, it has less energy to do its normal functions that keep us alive and well. Now, I'm not saying never drink alcohol, although that's how I choose to live my life now. But if you do drink regularly, I'd invite you to play with the idea of reducing how much you drink, bit by bit. As you do, notice what emotional stuff is coming up to be looked at, and then take some time to heal those issues. Do it through journaling, like I share in episode 20, or with the help of a therapist. What most people find is that when they clean up a lot of their emotional pains, they no longer feel the need to drink alcohol, or have sugar or coffee for that matter, because they feel whole and complete just the way they are, and don't need those addictive vices to help them get through, to help them cope with life, because life is sweet, just the way it is. So if there are 3 things you want to avoid, it's refined sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. But what do you do if your diet is all over the place right now? What if those 3 villains make regular appearances in your diet? Accept that's where you're at right now. Don't berate yourself because that's not self-loving. Simply acknowledge that there are some changes that can be made and then start small. I didn't go from eating a caffeine-heavy, sugar-filled diet to being caffeine and sugar-free overnight. It was a gradual process over many years of gently cutting back a little at a time. And I believe these small, consistent changes are far more sustainable and more likely to lead to long-lasting change because they're easier. If you try to change too much too quickly, not only could you experience withdrawal symptoms, you'll hit up against resistance. Your beliefs won't match your dietary changes, and so you'll be more likely to fall back into old patterns. But if you go slow, then those beliefs will loosen as you start to love yourself more through offering yourself healthier foods. And over time, that relationship with your food and with yourself, it'll become more aligned and more natural. So eating well is simply a way of life as opposed to something you need to make happen. So If coffee is your big one, listen back to episode 34 where I guide you on how to ease off coffee. If refined sugar is your vice, then simply start by cutting back. Maybe try halving what you have, or substituting a refined sugar treat for a natural sugar treat. I'll be adding recipes for healthy sweet treats on my blog over the next few months if you need some inspiration, so that we can do as Hippocrates once said, and let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food. Okay, so if what I've just shared feels a little difficult to implement, breathe. Like I just mentioned, I'll be releasing a handful of recipes over the festive break to help inspire you into a new way of treating yourself. I'm always playing with ingredients and coming up with new creations I can snack on and pop in my son's lunches. Creations that taste delicious and are healthy and full of goodness. And I know people love them because friends and family are always asking for my recipes. So I'm in the process of putting them together so I can share them with you shortly. Just make sure you're on my mailing list and they're my gift to you. If you're not yet on my mailing list, simply go to my website, gettingnaked.com.au, and sign up for the free Self-Love Starters Kit there. And then come mid-December, you'll receive one in your inbox each week. The theme of these recipes will be self-loving treats for a sweet tooth. Because while I'm all about eating well, I do have a sweet tooth. But as I've learned over the years, there are ways of cooking and ingredients that can be used that are much healthier than your typical treats and can actually support the body in functioning well. So all of these recipes are free of refined sugars, and some of them even sneak in some greens to help add to their nutritional value. And for those of you in my Remarkable Relationships program, I'm adding a brand new bonus section with dozens of my carefully curated recipes that I'll continue to add to so you can love yourself through eating well. That bonus section is already up, but keep checking back in the new year for brand new recipes. Next week, we'll be going into depth on what it means to be kind to oneself. For being kind to oneself is at the center of self-love. Until then, I'll leave you with this quote from Virginia Woolf. One cannot think well, love well, or sleep well if one has not dined well.
I love me.